Hello, boys and girls. Welcome back to Bible class. And today is a special day at our house. We've been out shopping for Thane. It's Thane's birthday today, and he's turning 7. So we bought candles. Do you see those little candles in there? And Mr. David's gonna start blowing up some balloons. Thane loves Star Wars, so we got some Star Wars balloons. And what else do you have for a party? Maybe some presents down in here. I've been wrapping presents today. Putting tissue paper like this down in the sacks. We've been making little lightsaber grapes for his party. You think he'll be so happy? I think he will. When Thane was just a little baby like this, I bought him this blanket at Walmart. That was his gift for his very first time I saw him. I wrapped him up in this blanket and he fit in my arms, and this blanket covered up his feet. You see that? And he didn't look like this baby. He had brown hair and brown eyes, but this is the only baby I could find. So now, this year, I'm getting him a big boy blanket. Do you see that? And it's supposed to be, it says on here, big. For a 7-year-old, it'll cover him up. This little blanket would barely cover up his legs, but this one will cover up his legs. So that's what birthday gift I'm giving him. You think he'll be surprised? I hope so. These are his presents. Tonight's story is going to be about a birthday, and it was in the Bible. And every year the little boy got the very same thing on his birthday. No other presents, just one thing. So you'll have to watch to find out what that is. And it's also a little bit about bullies. And I'm going to tell you the real story. Some people don't think 3 and 4-year-olds can handle all of the true facts. But I'm going to tell you the real story about Penina. And I know that's a hard word. You may never have even known that was in the Bible. But my mama used to tell us all the words. And my little sister Laurie, when she was just 4 years old, she knew the word Penina. So I know you can learn that too. So stay tuned, and we're going to tell you all about baby Samuel. I wanted to show you some things that you might pray for. Have you ever wanted a toy before and prayed about it? Or have you ever asked your parents for a toy and gotten an answer that was yes or no? They might say you can have a car when you're older, but you would have to wait if you ask your parents. We pray to God for food, don't we? That's a loaf of bread and a muffin. And we say, thank you for our food. You know what I did this week? I prayed for all of our frog class. I had you on my mind, and I'm hoping everybody's doing well. What kind of things do you pray for? Tonight, our story is going to be about a lady who prayed for a baby. You see that little boy? She didn't have a baby, and she prayed to God. Sometimes we get a yes answer from God, just like we do from our parents. Sometimes we might get no, and sometimes we get, maybe you'll have to wait. I'm going to show you where our story is tonight. It's in Samuel, the book of 1 Samuel. And right in that very first page, it says Samuel on it. All of our story is right here. And your mamas and daddies can read it. Your mamas and daddies can read it to you if they want to later. There was a man named Elkanah, and he had 2 wives. Isn't that funny? He had one named Penina, and she had a lot of children. And he had one named Hannah, and she didn't have any children. And every year, Elkanah went up to Shiloh to sacrifice to God. And he took both of his wives. And Penina was a little bit of a bully. She always tried to make Hannah feel bad because Hannah didn't have any children. She just always was making fun of her, and I guess made her feel so sad. But Elkanah loved Hannah, and he gave her a big portion of everything he had. He gave her more than everybody. But it still made her sad that Penina made fun and treated her poorly. And so one day she just felt so sad that she decided not to even eat, and she started crying. And Elkanah, her husband, said, "Why are you crying?" Why are you so sad? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? But it didn't make any difference. And so Hannah went to the temple where she could pray to God. And she put her hands together and her mouth started moving like she was saying a prayer silently, but no words came out. And the priest Eli heard her, and he thought she was drunk. He didn't think she was, he thought she had had too much wine to drink, but really she was praying to God. And she said, I'm just so sad, I just wanted a baby. And Eli said, well, you will have one. And she said, I promised God that if I have a baby, I will bring him back and I will give him to the Lord. And about that time next year, guess what? Hannah got a yes answer from God that time. And she had a little boy named Samuel. She was so happy. And she waited until he was a little bit bigger, till he was weaned and not drinking mama milk anymore. And then she took him back and she gave him back to Eli. And she said, this is the child which I prayed for. And God did bless me, and I'm bringing him back to you to let him serve you and serve the Lord. And she also brought 3 bullocks, got a lot of meat out of it. She took some wine and she took some flour to make bread. And she, every year for Samuel's birthday, she took him a little coat. That's what he got for his birthday present. How would you like to get a coat every year? I bet Samuel was so glad to see his mama coming though. And she sewed and made it just for him. And when he grew a little bit bigger every year, she came back again and got to see her son. She was so proud of him because he worked in the Lord's temple and helped Eli. And one night, this is the best part of the story. One night, Samuel was tired and he had gone to sleep. And in the middle of the night, when he was sound asleep, he heard this, Samuel, Samuel. And he thought, that must be Eli, the priest, calling me. I wonder what he wants me to do. So he walked down to see Eli, and he said, what did you want? And Eli said, I didn't wake you up. Go back to bed. And so Samuel went back to sleep. And that time, guess what? He heard, Samuel, Samuel. And he thought, is he tricking me? Is Eli still calling me? So he walked back down to see Eli. And Eli said, nope, that was not me. You must be dreaming. Go back to sleep. So for the 3rd time, Samuel went sound asleep. And he was so sound asleep. And he heard, Samuel, Samuel. And he went back to Eli for the 3rd time. And Eli said, I know what's happening. I think God is calling your name. God knows you. And he said, next time, I want you to say this. Say, speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Say, I'm ready to listen. So then Samuel went back to bed and waited. And guess what happened? He heard, Samuel, Samuel. And he sat up and he said, speak, Lord, I'm listening. And God told him he was going to be having to do some hard things. That Eli's sons were not doing what they should be doing. And he was going to punish Eli the priest and the sons if they didn't change. Oh, that would be sort of hard to go and tell Eli that you worked for something hard like that. But guess what? Samuel spoke God's words. And he used his mouth to speak the things God told him to say, the things that would change people for the better.
I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him, what I asked of him. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him, what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord for his whole life.
things God says to you, does he tell you that he loves you? Does he tell you to be a good person and to do the right things? You have to listen and hear what God tells you. Sometimes we hear about it in the Bible. Sometimes we go to church and hear about it at Bible class or in children's worship. We have to listen to what God says in his word. And even little children can learn lots of stories inside this Bible. And I'm so glad you joined us tonight right here by the fire. Mr. David and I have had a big day today, so we just are going to have a little tiny short Bible class tonight. But we surely do love you and we miss you all. And we'll see you next week. Join us next week for our story about David. We're going to talk about David writing the Psalms and hopefully get to see some sheep. So I hope you come back next week. We'll be waiting on you. Bye-bye.